Why do so many cultures invent the same instruments? It is one of the strangest things in musical history. You travel across centuries, you cross oceans, you move from Europe to Asia, from Africa to Oceania, from the ancient world to modern folk traditions, and there they are again. Panpipes, drums, flutes, horns, rattles, stringed instruments, bowed instruments, bagpipes, bells, whistles. Not always exactly the same, of course. The names differ, the materials differ, the tuning differs, the ritual differs, the music differs. But the basic idea is often recognisable. A row of pipes of different lengths, a membrane stretched over a frame, a string raised over a resonating body, a horn used as a trumpet, a gourd used as a resonator, a bag used to store air, a plectrum used to pluck a string, a bridge used to lift a string so that it can vibrate. Again and again, in places that seem far apart, human beings arrive at similar musical solutions. So what's going on? Is this evidence of migration? Sometimes yes. Is it evidence of trade, conquest, imitation, and cultural contact? Very often yes. But is that the whole story? Not quite. This is the Musical Archeologist, forgotten ideas from music's past. I'm Craig Dabelstein, and in this series I'm taking ideas from old books on music, most of them completely forgotten, and bringing them back into conversation with the present. Today we are finishing this series of episodes drawn from Ernest Closson's 1902 book, The Musical Instrument as an Ethnographic Document. And this final question may be the most important of all. Why do so many cultures invent the same instruments? Closson's answer is wonderfully simple. Because human beings are often trying to solve the same problem. And the laws of nature do not change. If you need an object to fly through the air and strike a target, you will probably invent something like an arrow. It needs a point so it can penetrate. It needs some kind of feathering or stabilising form so it can keep its direction. Whether you are in the ancient world or the modern world, in Africa or Oceania, the arrow will tend to look like an arrow. Not because everyone copied the same original arrow, but because the problem is the same, and because physics is stubborn. Closson says the same principle applies to musical instruments. If you want different pitches from pipes, the pipes must have different lengths. If you want to move quickly from one pipe to another with the lips, the openings need to sit at roughly the same height. If you want the pitches to rise or fall in order, the pipes themselves will probably be arranged in a regular progression. And there, almost inevitably, you arrive at panpipes. That is why panpipes appear in so many places. Closson mentions Europe, India, the Native Americans, Peru, Mexico, Fiji, Tonga, and the Solomon Islands. The instrument is not identical everywhere, but the underlying solution is the same. Different pitches require different lengths of pipe. The human mouth needs convenient access. The result is a row of pipes. In other words, the form is not arbitrary. It is shaped by the body, it's shaped by the breath, it is shaped by acoustics, and it is shaped by the need to make sound manageable. This is one of Closson's great insights. A musical instrument is not simply imagined, it's negotiated. The maker negotiates with the material, the player negotiates with the body, the culture negotiates with the purpose, and everyone negotiates with nature. Nature is not infinitely flexible. A string will not vibrate properly unless it is given room. So human beings invent the bridge. And when the instrument is plucked, the bridge may be flat. But when the instrument is bowed, the bridge is usually curved, so the bow can touch one string at a time. This is not a matter of national character, it's a matter of practical necessity. The same problem produces the same solution. Or take the bagpipe, which we discussed in episode 2. A wind instrument depends on breath, but breath runs out. So if you want continuous sound, you need a store of air. A bag becomes an artificial lung. Once you understand that problem, the widespread existence of bagpipes becomes much less surprising. A player needs to breathe, a pipe needs air, a bag stores the air. The result is obvious, once someone has thought of it. Closson's book is full of examples like this. The animal horn is used almost everywhere as a trumpet. Why? Because an animal horn is already curved, hollow, resonant, portable, and loud. It practically asks to be blown. Human beings, being human beings, eventually oblige. The gourd becomes a resonator. Why? Because it is hollow, light, and available. Membranes become drumheads. Why? Because stretched skin vibrates. Bones become flutes. Why? Because some bones are already hard, hollow tubes. Though, as we saw in episode 4, this can lead to certain social complications if one asks too closely whose bone it was. Twin flutes appear in many places. Why? Because two parallel pipes allow one player to create a richer or more complex sound. Hourglass drums appear in several cultures. Why? Because a narrowed centre makes the drum easier to hold. Portable drums are often pear-shaped. Why? Because a bulging drum swinging awkwardly against the body is nobody's idea of musical civilization. This is the comedy of instrument making. For all our lofty talk of art, a musical instrument is often born from a very plain human complaint. This is too heavy. I can't reach that. My breath has run out. This string is touching the wood. This drum is getting in the way. I need this to be louder. I need this to last longer. I need both hands, but I also need a rhythm. I would like to walk without being attacked by my own percussion section. And from these little problems, entire musical traditions grow. That's worth remembering, because we often encounter instruments only after they have become symbolic. The Scottish bagpipe, the Spanish guitar, the Japanese koto, the Indian sitar, the African marimba, the European violin. By the time we meet them, they seem inevitable, dignified, almost eternal. But behind every symbolic instrument there is also a practical invention, a person trying to solve a problem, a body trying to control sound, a material being persuaded to behave. That's why Closson's approach is so refreshing. He invites us to look beneath the surface, not to strip away the poetry of instruments, but to understand where that poetry begins. And often it begins in practicality. A bridge, a hole, a string, a bag, a skin, a reed, a hollow shell, a piece of bone, a gourd full of pebbles. There is something wonderfully democratic about this. It means that the history of music is not only the history of geniuses, it's not only the history of composers, and it's not only the history of great works. It's also the history of clever hands, of anonymous makers, of shepherds and hunters, dancers and soldiers, sailors, peasants, children, ritual specialists, and village craftsmen. People who may never have written music, people whose names are lost, people who simply needed sound to do something, to call, to warn, to mourn, to celebrate, to accompany work, to mark rhythm, to lead a dance, to frighten enemies, to summon animals, to honour the dead, to amuse children, to make the body move. And because these needs are widespread, the solutions are widespread too. This is what Closson means when he speaks of unity within diversity. The diversity is obvious. The world's instruments are astonishingly varied. A Chinese dragon-headed trumpet does not look like a Scottish bagpipe. A Javanese gamelan does not look like a Provençal pipe and drum. A Congolese slit drum does not look like a European violin. And yet, beneath the variety, certain principles return. Air vibrates in pipes. Strings vibrate when stretched. Skins vibrate when struck. Bodies respond to rhythm. Materials shape sound. Hands need something to hold. Breath needs somewhere to go. Music is cultural, but sound is physical. That may be the deepest answer. Cultures invent the same instruments because music lives in the meeting place between imagination and nature. Imagination supplies the desire, nature supplies the law, and the instrument is what happens in between. A culture may desire a sacred sound, a dance sound, a war sound, a shepherd sound, a courtly sound, a comic sound, a frightening sound, a beautiful sound. But whatever the desire, the maker still has to work with vibrating air, vibrating strings, vibrating membranes, resonating bodies, human fingers, human lungs, and human ears. So there are only so many ways to solve certain problems. That does not make instruments less interesting, it makes them more interesting, because each instrument is both universal and particular. The panpipe belongs to a physical principle, but it also belongs to a shepherd, a landscape, a dance, a ritual, a people. The drum belongs to the general fact of stretched skin, but it also belongs to a ceremony, a battlefield, a procession, a theatre, or a child's game. The horn belongs to the acoustic fact that a hollow tube can amplify the lips, but it also belongs to hunting, signalling, worship, royalty, war, and eventually the symphony orchestra. This is the wonder of musical instruments. They are never only one thing. They are physical objects, they are cultural symbols, they are technologies, they are memories, they are solutions, and they are voices. And this brings us back to Closson's title, The Musical Instrument as an Ethnographic Document. A document is something we read, and if we learn to read instruments carefully, they tell us not only what people played, but what people needed. They tell us what problems people faced. They tell us what materials they trusted, what sounds mattered. They tell us how people danced, prayed, signalled, marched, mourned, celebrated, worked, and remembered. In the end, perhaps this is why so many cultures invent the same instruments. Because beneath all the differences of place, language, religion, and custom, human beings have always shared certain needs. We need rhythm, we need signal, we need expression, we need ceremony, we need play, we need beauty, and we need sound to carry beyond the limits of the body. And wherever those needs appear, the same kinds of instruments begin to appear too. A pipe, a drum, a string, a horn, a rattle, a bell, a voice extended into the world. That's the great lesson I take from Closson. The world's musical instruments are endlessly diverse, but they are not random. They are evidence of human beings thinking with their hands, their breath, their ears, and their materials. They show us that music is not some luxury added to life after everything else has been solved. Music is one of the ways human beings solve life. We make tools for survival, and we make tools for sound. Sometimes, as in the hunter's bow becoming the ancestor of the harp, the two are closer than we think. So when we look at a musical instrument, even the humblest one, we should not ask only, what notes can it play? We should ask, what problem did it solve? What need did it answer? What world did it come from? And what part of being human does it reveal? That, I think, is why Closson's little book still matters. He reminds us that the musical instrument is not merely a thing, it's a clue. And if we follow the clue far enough, it leads us not only into the history of music, but into the history of humanity itself. You've been listening to The Musical Archeologist, Forgotten Ideas from Music's Past. Written and presented by me, Craig Dabelstein. The music for this podcast was composed by Jeffrey Young. The Musical Archeologist is one of many projects from Maxime's Music, dedicated to recovering forgotten music, forgotten writings, and forgotten musical worlds. Thank you for listening.